One thing you might not know, China is not linguistically uniform at all. When people say Chinese, most of the time they just mean Mandarin. But in fact, China has 7 major dialect groups, and many of them are just mutually unintelligible. That means speakers cannot understand each other without learning the other variety. So today I want to give you a clear, structured overview of China's 7 major dialect groups, where they are spoken, what makes them linguistically unique, and some very fun, very human expressions that only exist in these dialects. So first, of course, is Mandarin, because this is a variety most people know. So Mandarin is spoken across the northern China, the southwest, and much of the interior of the China. It's a basis of Putonghua, our official standard language. And linguistically, Mandarin has relatively simple tones compared to the southern dialects, which have 9 tones, 6 melodies, and it has fewer final consonants. And the grammar also became the national standard due to political and historical reasons. But even inside Mandarin, there are strong regional flavors. For example, in the northeastern Mandarin 东北话, people might say 磨叽, which means slow, dragging things out, overly hesitate. So if someone is taking forever to order a dish, you will hear someone saying, 你怎么这么磨叽? That word cannot be translated clearly into English, but that's part of the charm. And the second one would be the Wu dialect, spoken mainly in Shanghai, southern Jiangsu province, and Zhejiang province as well. So Shanghainese is basically the most famous Wu dialect. Wu dialect are known for the very rich vowel systems of soft, flowing sound, almost like people are singing quietly, and the preservation of the voiced consonant from the Middle Chinese. So to Mandarin speakers, Wu dialect often sounds almost musical. So a fun Wu expression is, I don't speak it well, but it's a 罗领噶, means it's very clever, very capable of something. So it's often said with admiration, especially toward children or young people. So Wu dialect also tend to sound emotionally expressive, even when people are just discussing daily things. But that's same for all the dialect to foreigners. I think I have heard many of my American students ask why the Chinese people always arguing in the restaurant in China, but they were just simply talking and chatting happily, but the tones make things sound more dramatic to non-Chinese native speakers. Okay, so the number 3 probably is the most famous dialect other than the Mandarin, which is Cantonese, 粤语. So Cantonese is spoken in Guangdong province and Hong Kong, of course, but also in Macau and widely across overseas Chinese communities. Because if you look back to the history, regardless it's 200 years or 2,000 years, the people near the sea in China were always the first group to immigrate and explore the new world outside of the mainland. So the dialect that they speak, of course, came to other places with them. So the Cantonese is famous for the 6 to 9 tones, depending on how you count them. And they preserving ancient final consonants like p, t, k, which does not exist in Mandarin anymore. And they have a very strong connection to the classical Chinese poetry. So all the poetries in Chinese are supposed to rhyme by the ending syllable of each line. But if you read them in Mandarin, half of them still rhymed, but the other half has totally lost the consonant to make them rhyme. But if you speak them in Cantonese, still like majority of them still have the rhyme feeling. So that's why we know Cantonese is much older in that sense. So one of the very iconic Cantonese expression is, I will try that again, 冇眼睇, which means literally I have no eyes to look at. But what it actually means, too embarrassing to look at, to watch. So Cantonese probably has the most and vivid cursing words among all Chinese dialects. That's also given by the rich history of this dialect. So they are extremely productive with sentence final particles, allowing the speakers to express emotion, attitude, and with precision. So number 4 is next to the Cantonese is a Min dialect. So it's basically spoken by the people from the Fujian province and Taiwan, but also parts of Guangdong and Zhejiang, and much of them are Southeast Asia. It's for the same reason because Fujian is also right next to the sea, so they also went out of the mainland China as the first group of immigrants. So people sometimes say 无闽相干, which means the Min dialect also, they don't understand each other as well because there are so many branches, include the Southern Min, which is the Taiwanese, I guess, and the Eastern Min, which is the Fuzhou dialect, and the Northern Min, and the Central Min, and the Puxian Min. So most of them belong to the same branch, but they are so different, so they still struggle to communicate. So that's why we need Mandarin, I guess. And the fun Southern Min expression is 拍谁, 拍谁, 拍谁. So that's means sorry, excuse me, embarrassed. I'm not sure if I sounded right. I heard it from somewhere. So it's a very casual and a very warm way to express your emotion, probably much lighter than 对不起 and much more common. And the number 5 is the Hakka. So the Hakka is special. It's spoken by the Hakka people, but they historically migrated across China, so it's really hard to say which area the dialect is spoken. But you will find Hakka speakers mainly in the eastern Guangdong and the western Fujian, and maybe the southern Jiangxi, and overseas communities, which is not surprising. So the Hakka is linguistically conservative. What's that supposed to mean? It preserves many older Chinese features. So it sounds much harder and more clipped to some ears. So a classic Hakka expression is 吃饱未? Have you eaten till you full? So it's not really a question. It's more likely a greeting. Almost like the Beijing dialect, like how are you? 吃了吗? 吃了吗? Have you eaten? So also I've heard people talking that Hakka probably also preserved the most old expressions of the Chinese language. That might be true. So the number 6 probably is the hardest to understand by the northern people like me. Is Xiang. Xiang is spoken mainly in the Hunan province. So there are 2 broad types. The old Xiang, which preserves the voids, the consonants, and the new Xiang, which is more influenced by the Mandarin. So the Xiang dialects often sounds very strong and direct, and almost a little bit emotionally forceful. So if you hear people speaking Mandarin in restaurant, you feel they're arguing, you should really listen to the Xiang dialect, and then you think they're about to fight the next second. So they have some fun expressions. For example, 蛮扎实, like very solid, very reliable. To be clarified, I can only speak them in Mandarin. I know they sound totally different in their own dialect, but other than Cantonese, I have maybe 50% of confidence that they will understand what I said. For all the other dialects, I cannot use their own way to say it, which I should learn maybe. So it's commonly spoken in the Hunan Hubei area. And the number 7 is the Gan, the last one. So the Gan is basically in the Jiangxi province. Jiangxi, the Gan dialect is less internationally known. Even in China, it was not a very popular and famous dialect, not like the Cantonese for sure, and not like the Shanghainese. But linguistically, it's a fascinating group of the dialect. It sits between the Mandarin, the Hakka, and the Xiang dialect. So for that, you can really not understand them even you look at the two characters, because sometimes for the dialects like Cantonese, the character are just used as pinyin to make the sound. So if you never learn the Cantonese or some of the dialects, you look at their newspaper, you would be able to read every single character, but has zero idea that what they're talking about, because the character, the Hanzi, served as the pronunciation tool for those language. So that's a very simple truth that most people don't know. So back to the Gan. So the Gan dialect reflects the most distinguished and unique feature of that area. So do Chinese people all speak the same language? Absolutely not. So what we call Chinese is better understood as a language family shaped by the geography, migration, and history. So the dialect is not just pronounced. It's not just about the pronunciation. It's about the identity. It's about the history. It's about the emotion and how the certain group of people see the world. So if you enjoyed this deep dive into the Chinese dialects, let me know which ones surprised you the most and which one you want to learn next. Follow for more. Thank you. 再见。